This is Business Talk, your business, your success. Sponsored by Take Action Business Coaching. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and may not be the views of the staff, advertisers, and owners of the station. Advice given is not intended to replace that of your business advisor. Now, let's get down to talking about your business, your success. This is Business Talk.
Well, good afternoon, Peg.
Good afternoon.
Here we are in beautiful Ohio.
Great to be here. It is great. I really like our topic today, Pete. I'm hopping right into it.
This is going to be great. We're going to talk about meetings. Those of you that have businesses or are an employee in a business or a manager in a big business, this is for you.
Yes, you're going to want to listen to this today. We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of great meetings, what makes a meeting bad, what's the timing, what's the agenda, how often, tips of having impactful meetings.
Who should be there and all those things.
Right. And I guess before, we hopped right into the topic because I was so excited. I was excited about it. Right? Well, it's something that we hear every day, and we should probably tell who we are. You want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, so Peg and I are business coaches, and we have a coaching practice here in beautiful Columbus, Ohio, and we also have Dawn Hackett and Michelle Calcasola, who is with us as associate coaches, and the four of us work with clients all over the country.
Right.
And I'd say 60% of them are here in Central Ohio, and the rest are in Michigan and Maryland and New Jersey and Texas and a bunch of different Alaska. That's right. I forgot about that.
So, and here is what we do. And it's interesting, Pete, because I was with a client who was in Michigan and their team. And literally, I was a computer at the desk and we were on Skype. So I was sitting there. Right. The only thing I couldn't do is they all went to go get coffee. And I was like, well, I don't have any coffee.
Yeah. And you don't drink coffee anyway.
I don't drink it anyway, so it didn't matter. So we help companies and teams grow. Right. And evolve. And we've been doing this for the last 12 years. Right. And we have a firm of coaches that help you. So you have, it depends on, coaching is a personal choice and you want to have the right, just like a trainer. Like if you go to
similar to a personal trainer, you are going to set the results that you want. You are going to determine where you want to be in 6 months or a year or longer. And we are going to help you get there faster. That's really what we do is help you get there quicker
by doing
with less
things.
Effort.
And sometimes it's doing things you should do. And sometimes it's doing things that you didn't know you should do.
Right.
So we always like to start with some good news.
And why do we do that, Peg?
Well, a lot of times it's interesting what we allow. There's this thing called the law of attraction and law of vibration.
And it's a law, so it always happens.
It is a law. It's scientific. This isn't Pete and I making this stuff up.
Although we do occasionally make things up.
But you can tell.
But it's up to you to figure out which is which.
So one thing we want you to do is put positive influence in your life because with positive comes success. With success comes happiness.
And there are things that are going on out in the world, particularly in the media, newspaper, television news, social media, sometimes that are negative.
Oh,
right?
yes.
So there are a lot of things out there that are negative that are coming at you.
Speaking of social media, have you ever had someone post something on Facebook so horrendously awful and it's spewing with negativity? That just happened to me the other day.
Yeah, you told me about this. This is it was bad.
Oh, it's astounding. It's my cousin on my dad's side. So
who is unnamed.
I'm not, well, I could name him and nobody would know him. He doesn't even live here. But, oh, my goodness, they were airing out some awful, awful stuff. And I thought, oh, my gosh, let's not have this in my life. So what do? I'm going to unfriend that because I don't want that in my life.
Yeah, right.
I don't need that. I do not need that. We are
right.
struggling every day with our own challenges. Why allow that to be in your life? So unfriend those opportunities. Don't make that in your life. So today we're going to celebrate good news that's happening.
Right. There's always good news. So I have an article here from the Wall Street Journal from just a few days ago, and it said the United States may have ceded its leading position in the billionaire stakes to Asia.
Oh.
However, it remains the undisputed king of millionaires. The United States does.
Okay.
A report Tuesday by Swiss banking giant Credit Suisse showed that the number of dollar-based millionaires around the world rose in the year through mid-2017 by 2.3 million. This is the fun part. Nearly half of them live here in the United States.
Oh, I like that.
Half of the 2.3 million millionaires in the world. The news wasn't as good for millennial generations that became adults in the new century. Their wealth prospects are being held back by factors such as high student debt, youth unemployment, frothy housing markets, those kind of things. It reports there's about 15 million United States millionaires in 2017.
How many? Wait, what was that?
15 million out of 330 million people, roughly.
Okay. Millionaires.
There's approximately 15 million, or about 5%, right?
Okay.
Is that right? Up about 1.1 million from the previous year. So that's a pretty big jump.
Wow.
Globally, there's only about 36 million around the entire world. We have 15 million of them here.
That's a good thing. Meaning we're keeping the economy going with the dollars spent in the U.S., which will serve all of us better and help build our business.
The other thing that I wanted to bring out, and this is from a different magazine. This is from Barron's magazine. It mentions that, and they're talking that this article was about wealthy individuals, people that have high assets and also have high incomes. And it says that the top 10% are people who have a median income of $175,000. So anybody over that is in the top 10%.
Over 75,000.
175.
Oh, 175.
And the top 1%, I just thought it would be interesting for the audience, is 750,000 and above. Those folks, the higher level folks, their average assets are $7.5 million. Of the 175,000 and above earners, the average assets are $1.5 million. So if you want a milestone of where you're at, those are some milestones for the United States.
Well, wait. So is there anything lower? I'm like grabbing your graph.
Yeah.
Is there anything lower? So I see the median income. Okay. That's it. It doesn't go anything lower.
No. This article is about people that are very wealthy. And the most interesting thing in this whole article is that U.S. Trust recently published a survey that said that the wealthy folks, 77% of them in this country, originally came from middle class and lower class backgrounds, and 19% of them, almost 20%, grew up poor.
Oh,
so
interesting.
3/4 of the people that have the highest net worth and income in this country
grew up poor
or middle class.
And you know what? That's what we call the American dream.
Exactly. And it's still happening.
That's why you do this.
It's still happening.
Because anybody can be there. It just takes openness, drive, persistence.
All those things.
Everything that we say that it takes when we're coaching you to get results.
Right. Cool.
Okay. Do we have any more good news,
A couple more quickies is
okay.
Caterpillar, which is a heavy equipment manufacturer. They're raising their sales and profit forecasts, which is really good because it's construction, mining equipment, which means the economy in general is good if we're trying to get more raw materials, right?
Okay, very good.
So things are picking up. And then one of our clients deals a lot with Boeing. Boeing got a deal from Emirates for $15 billion worth of 787 Dreamliners. Holy cow.
Good for Boeing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Good for Boeing. So that's some good news, Pete. And this is Peg and Pete with Business Talk. And what we did is we always start our show a little bit with some good news. But today, I like it. Okay, we're crumbling up the good news.
Is gone.
The good news is gone because we got to make way for new.
Oh, yeah.
So our research director, Pete, good job there on researching the good news for this week.
All right.
So now we're going to talk a little bit. Let's jump right into our topic, which is meetings.
Yeah, so one of the things that got us on this topic is that Peg and I we look at the newspaper a lot, and we've got an article here that says new meeting rules, 5 minutes max. So we thought, well, let's talk about meetings and their effectiveness.
Well, and as we talk about this, and the reason we pick our topics is when we're meeting with our clients, and we have lots of clients, 25 probably clients, maybe 30.
Just between the two of us.
Just between the two of us, yes.
Michelle and Dawn's.
So we have these clients that we work with on a weekly basis, and every one of them runs into different challenges. So, and when you're looking at challenges, it can be anything from, hey, I have a cash flow issue. It could be, I have a hiring issue.
Right.
I have a culture issue.
Right. People don't do what I say.
Yeah, I have a systems issue. I have a leadership issue. And I have a growth. Like I'm growing so fast that I need to make sure I'm consistent in my delivery and I'm outgrowing things. And so there's all different kinds of challenges. And
they almost all have an issue of not having, at least their perception, not having enough time.
Right. I would say almost everybody. We hear that constantly.
Right.
Constantly.
Right.
I don't have enough time.
Right.
So that's really, and another big thing that we see is when we walk in the door, I never hear saying, I have too many meetings. Or, we never hear this. We never hear, like, if we say, what are your challenges? Well, I don't know that my meetings are effective, or I don't know that I'm having a rhythm. We never really hear them say that, but what we find out, not directly, is when we dig in, we find that that is a symptom of what is causing issues.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes it is not enough meetings of the right type and the right frequency. In some cases, and I'm thinking of a couple of our larger firms that we work with, too many meetings that are just plain in the calendar and they've been there for years and they take too long.
Yeah, so we want to talk. So when we return, what we're going to talk about is let's take a look at meetings. How often? What should the frequency be? What should the agenda be?
Yeah, who should be there?
Who should be there?
What do we want to get out of this meeting?
What are the pitfalls? And so, because if you imagine a meeting with your top people is highly valuable, and we're going to talk about evaluating the value, dollar-wise, of a meeting.
In fact, one of these articles said there's an app you can get to quickly calculate cost of a meeting.
Love it. When we return, we'll talk about that.
To learn more about today's topic, call 614-306-7922. Now, back to more Business Talk.
All right, we're talking about meetings today and how well they're run and how effective they are. And one of the things that reasons we got into this is we found an article here that says new meeting rules, 5 minutes max. And this company, this is Aaron Shapiro, is the chief executive of Huge Incorporated. It's a 1,500-employee New York digital agency. Mm-hmm. He started holding 5-minute meetings rather than booking a conference for 30 minutes or an hour. He makes a lot of minor decisions in 5-minute huddles with the right colleagues.
Okay, so let's talk about that. When we walk into, and as we said right before break, is as we're coaching companies, it never comes up of, hey, Peg and Pete, let's take a look at our meetings and like that. It's usually us bringing it up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, to your point of, and you said it right before the break, we have a meeting in the calendar and everybody's starting to think that, okay, well, we'll take an hour for that meeting. Okay, let's take an hour. One of the things we do challenge you is the time period of a meeting. So now Huge, it's called Huge.
Yes, it's a 1,500-person firm in New York City.
Now they're doing 5-minute huddles.
Yes, whenever they can. And one of the things that he mentions is, it's just funny, because we know some clients that are on the other side of this. There's minimum small talk, less tolerance for 30 and 60-minute scheduling. In other words, if you think you can get it done 15 minutes, schedule for that rather than 30 or 60. It doesn't always have to be 60.
Right.
Just as a habit.
And that's what we said is, could it be 20 minutes? Could it be 40 minutes?
And then could you send, and we do this with some of our clients, are really good about this, just send a sentence, even in the headline of when the meeting's scheduled. Think about this before the meeting. That's
a good idea.
We're going to work on this topic. Here's a couple of things to consider. And get people thinking about it before they walk into the room.
Because then you're going to be saving time. The other thing, we're just going to go through some tips. Number one is, one thing Pete and I do is, as we're coaching you, is we want you to write down all your current meetings. Like we did this with Aaron.
Yes.
We said, write down all your current meetings, put it on a little spreadsheet, right?
Right.
Then put, what is the purpose of each one of those meetings?
Yeah. Why are you having it in the first place?
Right. And then how long, right?
How long, right? Who should attend?
Who should attend?
Right.
Right. And then the frequency, like how often you're having it, like once a month, whatever it is.
Right.
And really first take a look as your first step of looking at the scope of your meetings. And if you run a larger company, we want you to have all your managers do this.
Well, that particular one was interesting because this gentleman was concerned that maybe he was spending too much time in meetings. When we added it all up, he was about 15%, which as a general manager, I think that's fine.
Yes.
Absolutely fine.
And that's a great idea I'm so glad you brought that up, is look at your percent of time in meetings.
Right. And your employees.
So we did this where we were in a larger company, and I'll leave the name of the company out, Pete, if you remember.
Yes, I do.
And we looked at their percent of time that the employees were in the meetings. And I mean, it was high. I don't remember. This was like 6 years ago.
40 to 50%.
And so we went to the director and we talked about it and said, hold on.
Yeah.
You know, these guys can't get anything done because they're in meetings. What is it that we can do in order to alleviate this pressure on them?
Right. There's another company here mentioned in this article. It's Chris Parker is a managing partner of South Norwalk, a digital marketing agency in South Norwalk, Connecticut. They have a morning huddle, which we totally encourage, daily meetings right on time. And they said most of the time they're done in 4 to 6 minutes. just for the daily huddle, 4 to 6 minutes. Now, we have a client over in Dayton that does this. Theirs is about 15, but it's a manufacturing facility, and they're talking about shipping as well as orders coming in. So 15 minutes, I think, is good for them. For these folks, it's 4 to 5 minutes. He said, if you come to the meeting late, you've missed it.
Well, and here's the thing about your meeting. So first, what we're asking you to do, and so this is Peg and Pete with Business Talk, and one of the things we're doing is when we are on our shows, we want to give you tips of what we do when we coach people. So, and if you want more of these tips, we take all of our radio shows and we put them on our website, which is takeactionbusinesscoaching.com.
Right. And you click on the Business Talk icon, and it'll show you all the past shows.
Yes, it's wonderful education that you can listen to and or your employees. So going back to the meetings, so one of the tips, I'm just going to revisit, is that we want you to document them all. Just sit there and write them all down. Then see what % of time.
How much time does it demand?
Because we do see that it's too much sometimes, but equally we see it's not enough, because if you are this, like I have this one gentleman who said, I hate meetings, I'll never have them. Well, that's too few. That's just too few.
Right.
It's impacting too much the other way.
One example there, as well as we've got a manufacturing client where in months past, he was basically the center of everything.
Right.
He's handling sales. He's handling the marketing progress. He's handling the production in the plant and the engineering side. And he found out, he really thought about it and found out that really everybody comes to him with everything. And that by starting his meeting rhythm, he was able to get himself out of the middle of some of the things and let employees work with each other directly rather than go through him all the time.
Right. So some of our tips have been looking at your frequency, what % of time, then making sure that it doesn't have to be an hour. It could be 40 minutes. It could be 30 minutes. It could be 5 minutes.
Right.
What is the frequency? Because sometimes you'll do shorter meetings, 5 to 15 minutes, and then you don't have to have that whole hour.
Right.
And then the other thing, 2 things that we want to require, like one thing we want you to think about is making sure people don't bring phones to meetings.
Oh, that's a good one. And sometimes, unless you have these rules of the game established, is somebody on their computer, if they're taking notes during the meeting, it's sometimes distracting because you don't know if they're answering emails or what.
Right. And it's okay if you all as a team decide to have a phone, then that's what you decide. Right. I just want to challenge you on that because a lot of times meetings are about communication and building relationships, because sometimes that's our moments to really interact.
To get together.
Yeah. And so that minute beforehand, if we don't have our phone with us, then we are forced to talk.
Well, the other thing to bring up there, Peg, is that if you're going to shorten your meetings strategically as a team, it'd be good to talk to the team about the fact that if you start to go off on a topic that is unrelated.
We call that a rabbit trail.
A rabbit trail. I'm going to mention it as the meeting facilitator, but it's not to hurt your feelings. It's just, hey, guys, let's do that later. The topic is this. Let's get back to this.
Well, going back
and it mentions this, and you need to check your ego, and no war stories, no long stories.
Right. So going back to facilitating, I'm so glad you brought that up, Pete, because the way to have an effective meeting, to make sure that the short meetings are effective, is that you have to be strong in facilitating it. Sure. You have to be okay with saying, we can't talk about that right now, let's table it. Or let's do that after this meeting. Or we've gone off topic, let's do this. Now, you can learn to do that. Pete and I, as business coaches, come into your meetings. One thing we offer, and if you'd be interested, we can do this for you, is we come in and do a quick analysis of your meetings. Right. Not only do we look at the frequency, the time, we also look at the topics, the outcomes, the people involved, and then we actually come to your meetings and do an evaluation. If you are interested in us doing that for you, give Pete a call.
It's 614-306-7922.
It's 614-306-7922. So one of the things is it's not just about that, but it's also about how do you run an effective meeting? How are you a great facilitator? And you said it earlier, Pete. I just want to circle back on that. And it was making sure that people understand the rules of the game. Making sure that they understand the expectations and that, hey, guys, do we all agree that if we're down a rabbit trail that we say, okay, we're going down a rabbit trail? That's the way to not hurt feelings, is to create a understanding and an acceptance and a rule that will be followed.
Yeah, and it's not a personal attack. It's just we've got 8 people here, and we want to get this meeting done in 15 minutes. Let's do that later.
Right.
The other tip, and this is from a gentleman out in a Phoenix digital ad agency. It's called Lane Terralever. And he says that he goes into meetings. He spends about 5 minutes before a meeting getting his customary 3 to 5 minute update down to 30 seconds. So he actually has to give an update in this meeting, and he works on it to get it shorter.
Exactly. And I'm going to go ahead, and I love that. So there's a couple things. Is number one, to send out the topics for them to think about. Yes. Number two is to work on yourself as a facilitator or have us come in and help you.
And if you're a participant, to say, if I've got something I want to get across, how can I get it across in a couple minutes rather than 5?
Exactly. Making sure you stay on point and on topic.
And the great thing is it helps you because it may save you a few minutes. But if there's 8 people in the room, it'll save a lot of minutes.
Think about that.
Yeah.
And so am I hopping ahead, Pete, about the app that you mentioned before the break?
No, I don't think so.
I'd like to talk about that because one time we were with a heating and cooling dealer, and they were bringing in their service techs in. And I said, and I don't remember what the answer was, but I said, what's the value of a service tech per hour? And I'm going to say $100, only because it's a round number. I don't know that that's true. So if we have 10 people in a room and there's $100 value an hour, then we're looking at $1,000 for that hour.
Right. And if you do it every week.
And if you do it every week, it compounds. And if you have 15. So the question we challenged our managers, and that I'm challenging you guys as a listener, is not only do I want you to look at your meetings and the frequency, but what we also want you to do is we want you to look at the value of the people in that room and how much money that moment is worth. And are you treating it like that? Or are you just rolling your eyes saying, oh, it's our weekly meeting and we're going to make it an hour?
I got my coffee and my donut and I'm going to,
Right.
And the other thing, just to balance this a little bit, is sometimes people use that to connect with each other, right?
Right.
Inter-office personal relationships.
That's why we don't want phones.
I haven't seen Joe out in purchasing for a while, and how's the kids and those kind of things. One company says that they compensate for that because their meetings are much shorter, so there's less time to banter with each other. They make sure that they schedule some time on Fridays, maybe it's Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock or 3:30, to get together and socialize a bit.
So that it's so
socialization's still important.
Right.
Let's plan that too.
But that's just another example of why you don't want to bring a phone to, not only because it's a disruption and it's disrespectful, but also because it helps with relationships.
If you're not on your phone.
Right, if you're not on your phone.
For sure.
Right. Yeah. And so do you know the app? You said that there's an app that calculates?
I don't have it on the top of my head here.
Oh, okay. But there is an app that, there's no reason we need an app. You could actually calculate.
You could figure that out.
How many people are in the room? What's the value per hour?
And if you have trouble with the math, 614-306-7922 will help you.
That is very good. Yeah. That is very good. So far, as Pete and I are using this weekly show, it's all about meetings. I guess that could be our topic. It's all about meetings.
Let's do that.
I like that. I like that title. So when we return, I'd like us to talk, Pete, about the agenda for a meeting.
Yeah, let's do it.
And some of the do's and don'ts and tips.
And we're going to reference a book called Death by Meeting. Patrick Lencioni wrote a couple of very famous books, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and the other one was Death by Meeting.
I love that book.
These are bestsellers like for years and years.
And they're bestsellers for a reason. They're very good, very easy to read.
And he's got some very good tips about how to run a great meeting.
So when we return, we'll dive into that.
Great.
Could your business use some help? Call 614-306-7922 to schedule your coaching session. 614-306-7922. Now, here's more business talk.
Well, good afternoon, Pete.
Yes, and we're talking about meetings today, right?
Oh, we're having this radio show. Pete, you got to pick this topic, and I just have to applaud you because it is something that people don't talk about. They tend to not visit. And I believe that this show alone is giving you tips that you can apply right away, whether you're coached by us or not. Now, when you're coached by us, the experience, just to give you an idea, is that we meet with you weekly or every other week, or your team, and we're growing and we work on different areas. So you're constantly honing and growing yourself and other areas in your company.
And we do help you set goals initially, long-term goals, and then 90-day goals. and help you move in that direction, and your team move in that direction.
Exactly.
And get you there faster. That's the real goal, is to help you get there faster with less effort.
And I love the meeting thing. So if you just joined us, you can go to our website, takeactionbusinesscoaching.com.
Right.
Takeactionbusinesscoaching.com.
Right.
And
or if you'd like some help evaluating your own meetings or anything else in your business, give us a call. It's at 614-306-7922.
And what that means is we come in, we could probably do it in a couple hours. So it's not a big thing.
Right.
And then we can go from there on all the choices that you can have. So, because in some cases, your meetings, we just did this right before the break. We said if you have a $100 an hour value employee and you have one meeting for 1 hour with 10 of them, it's $1,000 moment. Now,
if you do it every week,
it's
right?
$4,000 a month.
It's $50,000 a year.
Yes.
So
it
it's
matters.
real money after
it
a
matters.
few years.
So anyway, so let's dive into some other tips. We talked a little bit beforehand about analyzing the amount that you're doing, analyze what you should change.
Right.
So
we've got an article here from the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania, and this professor named Nancy Rothbard says that a lot of times leaders are scheduling meetings to get people engaged in the problem at hand. And I think that's a great reason to have a meeting.
Right.
You've got an issue or maybe an opportunity. It's not always a negative thing, right? It could be an opportunity we have.
Right.
Let's get the correct people in the room. Let's talk about it. Now, one of the things we're referencing also Patrick Lencioni, who wrote Death by Meeting and the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Okay.
The problem too often is that meetings are boring. And boring in a meeting happens for the same reason as in a book or a movie, not enough compelling tension. And what he means is meetings should be intense. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay, let's do.
In other words, you should be bringing high-powered people together only when there's a big opportunity for a breakthrough or there's a big problem that needs to be solved, and there is going to be some tension, right? Production's behind, or we're not getting out to meet the right customers.
Correct.
And we've got some data that's telling us that.
Correct.
There's got to be a uncomfortable situation happening, and that's the time to have a meeting.
Well, or it could even be internal. We're not all getting along.
Yeah, sure.
And one of the things that we encourage when you're looking at a meeting structure is at the very beginning, and when you have Pete and I come into your company, and if we facilitate, which we do a lot, it's the first thing we say is, okay, how much time are we going to do? We have 45 minutes. In that 45 minutes, tell me what we're going to accomplish. And we outline it. When this 45 minutes is done,
right?
So we were with a team last week, Pete and I were, and I said we had, in this time we had 3 hours because we were doing a lot. And I go, we have 3 hours together. At the end of these 3 hours, what are we going to see happen? And we're going to say, okay, this was successful. Tell me the outcome that we're looking for.
Right.
Creates a focus, creates everybody on the same page and alignment. And if I'm going to take this time, then we're going to make sure that we're delivering on what we should. So starting your meetings that way of alignment and what we want to accomplish is good.
It's congruent with what we do in that we want business owners to be thinking out 2 to 3 years on the long term, right? Occasionally saying, hey, where's this company headed? And where am I headed personally? And then also having some clarity on where you want to be in that year, right?
Right.
And that helps guide your actions. So thinking about an hour, if we're going to spend an hour together, what's the outcome that we want in that hour?
Exactly.
It's the same process as thinking about 90 days or a year.
And it allows focus, and it makes sure that we're getting, because have you ever heard, we hear this often, I go there and nothing ever happens. It's the same old thing. I don't even know why I'm there. I shouldn't be at that meeting. That's what we want to avoid. So I like what you said is there a challenge? Is there an opportunity? Is there a growth?
Right. And if there isn't, if it's just a status update, it needs to be quick.
That's a quick meeting. Right. Absolutely. Right. And so at the end of the meeting, so at the beginning, you're going to state the purpose and what would be a great outcome. At the end of the meeting, this is what we want you to start doing. Grade that meeting. On a scale of 1 to 10, what was it?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Just take 1 to 2 minutes at the end, and everybody goes around 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay. Is there anything we could have done differently to make it better? And I'm saying do that in 2 minutes at the end.
And you don't have to do it at every one. You could do it,
no.
Occasionally. If you have a weekly meeting, do it once a month or once a quarter at least to make sure that meeting's still effective.
Well, it's interesting because when we do facilitate meetings and with our clients, and they know we ask that. Now, and to your point, it's not every single meeting we have, we're not asking it, but we are asking it. And it's funny when sometimes they go, oh my gosh, that was a 10. And we don't even ask. And we say, okay, what made it a 10?
Yeah, why? Good.
So
good to know why.
It's important to understand what you should be continuing to do. So so asking your team.
This is Peg and Pete with Business Talk, and we're business coaches, and we're talking about meetings today. The other thing to think about is you have people in a meeting. If you have someone that's disengaged, you're paying for them and they're not participating. That's
right.
one. The other thing is a lot of times when somebody's disengaged, people are talking about a topic that's important. The person that's disengaged may have information that they're not sharing because they're not paying attention.
So what do we do about that?
So you got two problems.
Yes.
We've got to figure out a way to, as the facilitator or owner of the meeting, you've got to figure out a way to, you have to take the ownership of making sure everybody's engaged.
Right.
So it's your job to keep everyone engaged.
So here's a question for you. I've had this happen where people, and this is going back to the phone. I've had feedback that they say when we're in the meetings, they're on the phone. And it's really, they get their feelings hurt. They get disrespectful. And that's one of the things that they disengage. So one thing that we say is if they have to have a phone, if they're going to get on the phone, they're going to say, sometimes they want the phone because we're researching, and this happened to us, and we wanted a phone. We're like, can somebody look on the phone and research that right now? So if you have to be on the phone, tell people why instead of...
Sure. So it should be an exception rather than the rule.
Right, exactly, exactly. Making sure you're totally engaged. So and here's another thing, and we talk to our managers and as coaches and executive coaches, we say, everybody's not wired the same. Some people have difficulty speaking up in meetings.
Well, and that's where as a good facilitator, and we're not going to talk about behavior profiles today, but if you have some generally shy employees or quiet, reserved employees, you as the facilitator or the leader may have to ask someone's opinion and wait for their answer because they won't speak up. They're not going to interrupt anybody to get their little idea, and pretty soon the meeting's over.
Because, introverts are brilliant people. They're thinking, and they're going to have a really good idea.
Right.
Your job is to ask them.
You might have to actually ask them, John, what do you think about this idea? Is there anything we're not thinking about? And
give them a moment to answer.
That's very good. That's key.
So that is a real watch out. So looking at your mix of team members, and who is it that's always speaking up? The extroverts are always speaking up. It's natural for them. Right. But it's always not the right answers.
Right.
It really isn't.
So here's a poll that the Harris Company just did. Nearly half, 46% of 2,066 American adults polled by Harris said they would endure any unpleasant activity rather than sitting in a meeting. 18% of that 46% said they'd rather prefer a trip to the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Oh, my.
17% they'd said they'd prefer watching paint dry. And 8% said they'd like a root canal.
Oh, my.
That's good news for your dentists out there. I didn't think it'd be that high.
I don't know that it would be that much where I'd want a root canal. I don't think we need that. Well, and if you think about it, because it comes from a sense of frustration.
Yes.
And that's why grading the team, on a scale of 1 to 10 is every once in a while grade your team and say, how is it? And if they can't tell you the truth or they feel uncomfortable, that's a whole different example of what we need to work on.
And this exercise of listing your meetings and figuring out who's in there and how much time they're spending and the purpose, you could do that once a year and just make a course correction. You don't need to do this all the time, right?
Right, exactly.
Just evaluate.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely not. Right.
Yeah.
And it is amazing because when we come into an organization and just do that, the amount of money we're saving, because if you think about the production and then the culture and then the relationships, it really is impactful.
Yeah, so here's another statistic. Respondents to the same 2015 poll said that each week these employees spent 4.6 hours preparing for meetings and 4.5 hours attending meetings. So 9 hours a week.
9 hours a week.
That's a lot.
Well, and that's, if you're working
a day
40
and change. Yeah.
If you're working 40 hours, that's 25% of your time. Well, and when we return, Pete, I want to tell the story. We're going to tell story time when we return.
We like that.
About the meetings that when we went into a company, the meeting that happened, right? That was happening all the time. That was like paint drying. And then how we changed the agenda, the feel of the meeting to make it better.
Awesome.
So talking about how we want to give you tips on how you can make your meeting where people are more engaged, they're looking forward to it, they're participating, and therefore it's more impactful.
That sounds perfect.
To learn more about today's topic, call 614-306-7922. Now, back to more business talk.
All right, we're talking about meetings today and how you can run a great one.
Yes.
And some things to watch out for and some things you might want to move towards. So there's another statistic in here. This is interesting stuff.
I like this statistic.
In 1960, the average executive spent an average of 3.5 hours a week in planned meetings, plus informal meetings. And by 1989, the typical manager was spending between 25 and 80% of his or her day in meetings.
Wow.
25 to 80%.
80% in meetings.
This is from a profile of meetings in corporate America. Results of, it's a 3M meeting effectiveness study. So a company was studying meeting effectiveness. One of the things that I think is driving people to feel put on by meetings is that people are generally working longer hours and they've got more demands on them and they're being expected to multitask. And what we've got to put our minds toward, and especially particularly the leaders who are organizing these meetings, is this a good use of my time and my
good question to
coworkers' mind? Always asking.
Good question.
And could we do this quicker?
And, we're talking, a lot of our focus this radio show has been on, making sure you're not having too many meetings, making sure that they're quicker. But I also want to challenge you that when we walk into some companies, they're not having enough meetings.
Oh, yeah.
And we see the impact on that in communication. So we just went to a company where we did an evaluation of where they are. And that's usually when you hire us, one of our first steps is just to talk to the employees and talk to the company. And if on a scale of 1 to 10 with communication, they were probably at a 2. And they have no meetings. And they have no meetings because guess what? They're too busy. They always say that. So you got to watch the frequency that maybe you need to do more too.
Right. We're not advocating not having meetings.
Right.
We're not. We're talking about having effective meetings. And again, back to this article, they say that work is becoming more complex and interdependent, and people have to interact with each other.
Right.
They can't do their work without other people. And that the richest communication comes from when we're sitting across from each other or next to each other, where we can see body language and tone of voice and understand exactly how this person feels about a particular topic. So there is a great value to having a great meeting. You learn a lot faster when you're together.
Well, because when you're together, you're participating. And if you look at how we learn, when you participate, your percentage is like 75% of effectiveness. And so meetings allow you to do that. And so one of the things Pete and I talked about right before the break is, okay, so we're going to tell a story of what happened with one company.
Okay,
as
story
we
time.
Went on. It's story time. So we go into a company, and they asked us to evaluate their meetings. And so what we'll do is we come in and we talk about, let's look at your spreadsheets. Let's look at, your spreadsheet of meetings.
Yeah. Yep.
And let's just look at the frequency. So we did that. And again, that's what Pete and I could do. So if you're interested in us coming in and doing that for you, you could absolutely do that. And then we want to be a fly on the wall and attend the meeting.
Yes.
So then we want to say what's the value of the meeting. So tell me how much money this is $1,000, this is $10,000 meeting, whatever it is. Okay, I got it.
That's just a number.
Just a number, right? Just to see, and then we sit in and we want to look at what is the outcome you're looking for.
Right.
How engaged are the team? What at the end did we achieve it?
Yeah.
And so now the gentleman that we were coaching in this case, who's I love him. He was a heating and cooling. He is, I shouldn't say. He's still around. He's a heating and cooling guy, and he was dealing with men, sort of grumpy, that were, they're a little crabby, but still good guys, but they were about 45. I say majority of them were about 40 years old and up to maybe 70 years old, and all men, sort of blue collar kind of guys. And the meeting was at 7 a.m, and they have a lot to do and they're busy. So I wanted to just
They've got a lot of work to think about.
They have a lot of work to think about. So I attended the meeting, and then afterwards we talked about, and this is what we'll always ask you. So we'll say, okay, what do you think? What do you feel? And so one of the things we talked about with Cared Away is that, number one, the energy level was low.
Oh, sure.
It's 7 a.m, and these guys are rolling out of bed, and they're just thinking about all the things they have to do. Number two, the facilitator did almost all of the talking. All of the talking.
So if I'm a participant, I'm sitting there listening to somebody talk to me for an hour.
Right.
Right after I've gotten out of bed.
Exactly. The third thing is we didn't really have an agenda. So they didn't know the topics. They weren't prepared. And earlier in the show, if you were listening, Pete had mentioned about always sending out the topics so that people can have thoughts about it to make it a more effective meeting. So here's some of the things that Pete and I did to help change. And I have to tell you, as we're talking about this, you've got to pick what's right for you. But it was funny because this gentleman did fight me on a few things saying, are you sure? Are you sure?
It was uncomfortable.
It was uncomfortable, right? Because it was uncomfortable because it was different. So here's some of the things we did. Number one is we had music playing as you walked in the door. We had to increase our energy level. So before the meeting started, we wanted to play. And each time, what we ended up doing is any person around the room got to pick their topic of music or even bring their music or play their music. So one time it could be country. One time it could be, classic rock. One time it could be top 40. So playing music to increase energy level was one thing. We always started out in the meeting with what was called a whiffle. What I feel like expressing, what's on the top of my mind.
Right.
Now, this was when he thought, he goes, this is insane. We're going to go around the room and have everybody, and it takes 1 to 2 minutes for 10 people because it's quick and it's not a discussion.
And you can pass.
And you can pass.
If you have nothing.
So it would be, an example would be, hey, you know what, it was really cold this morning. It was hard to get in here. Or it could be, hey, I just left a customer and it really upset me and I'm bummed about it. So you get what is on the top of everybody's mind. And the reason you do that is so that they can clear the space to be present here. It also gives them a moment to talk. Mm-hmm. And he thought it wouldn't go over well. That was one of the people's favorite, these men, it was one of their favorite things. They came and go, oh, I have my whiffle, I'm ready. So you do that. That would be another thing. The other thing is we did create an agenda, Pete. We had an agenda that they knew about. The third thing is we would always have an inspirational video within there, 2 to 3 minutes max. Yeah. And we went around.
Sometimes less. Yeah.
Sometimes less. And each person had to bring it. And I say inspirational. It was a video that would be appropriate, whether it's educational, funny, 2 to 3 minutes of lighthearted. And then we had every person, it was their video time. So we shared in that meeting. And then we ended up by just those little changes, by increasing the energy level with the music, talking about what's on the top of mind where they each spoke, making sure that they had an agenda, making sure that each person participated in the video, and then making sure that everybody scored it and knowing that it always didn't have to be an hour. Those just changes really impacted.
That's great. That's great.
They impacted the meeting and they impacted the results. So looking at your agenda will be really important.
Super. So Patrick Lencioni has some specific suggestions here. We're wrapping up on this topic of business meetings. He said all the meetings combined, all the various meetings that you need to go to should take up 15% of your time.
In a week.
Yeah. Or a month or a year. In 15%.
So that is total. Exactly what I want.
And, if a higher level person, it might be a 20. But if it's 40 or 50, there's a problem.
So I'm hearing you say, Pete, the first thing we want you to do is go back, look at your meeting schedule and see what percent of time is it taking up.
Yeah, that's one really good thing to do. The other one, and this is, again, Patrick Lencioni, who wrote Death by Meeting. He suggests that there are meetings that are 4 types, and we've mentioned most of them here.
Oh, yes, let's talk about
those. The first is a once-a-day meeting, 5 or 10 minutes. And again, we have a couple clients that do less than 5. I've got one that does 15, but it's a little more complex thing going on. But they get it done in 15 minutes all the time. They've been doing it for years.
Well, and it's regimented and it's facilitated. Regimented. Yes.
And it's at the same time every day.
Got it. Okay.
And standing up can help you, and it gives you a little more energy.
Standing up.
Stand up. Why not? If you're going to do these huddles, stand up. The second type of meeting is a staff meeting. A lot of times they're weekly, sometimes they're monthly, but they're tactical things that we're working on. Progress. Are we allocating resources correctly? Those kind of things. The third can be a little bit longer, and it's for bigger strategic things, like we've had a job posted for months. We're not getting enough candidates to fill this position.
Right.
Or 6 months from now, we're going to need a person over here, and we don't have anybody right now. We're not cross-training properly. There's a lot of things that we need to think about in a little bit more detail. It's going to take more than, a 30-minute meeting. So that's a little bit longer meeting. It could be a couple hours. The last type of meeting is something we do quarterly to say, okay, we set some goals for the year and the quarter. Are we progressing toward both of those things? Well,
and having a 90-day plan for all of your team members, and whether it's a plan or even at the very least the priorities, like what are your priorities, your top 2 or 3?
Yeah, crystal clear priorities. Yeah.
And making sure that you visit those quarterly.
Yes.
That's good. Okay, so there's 4 types. Let's just go review it one more time.
So 4 types again. First is this once-a-day meeting. We call it a huddle. It's 5 to 10 minutes long. You could stand up if you can. Would be really good. and do that with just the appropriate people to get off what's going on right now. Is there anything we need to address right now? And then move on.
Okay.
The second type is the proverbial weekly staff meeting, and you're doing updates. And we've mentioned some tips about how you can make those a little faster as well.
Okay.
Practicing if you have to give an update for your department, let's get it down to a minute instead of 5 or 10.
I like it.
The third is a longer meeting where you're looking at bigger strategic opportunities or issues. And you got to get into some details about it. Maybe it's getting close to the annual budget time. Mm-hmm. You got to think about what things are going to be included, what are our risks, and what are the things that we're going to base our budget on.
I like that.
The last kind of meeting is this assuming you have an annual plan and a quarterly set of goals. How are we doing versus our goals? And are we on track to get to our plan?
And just one more time, the percent of time that you're looking at where you should be devoting to meeting time in a week?
Approximately 15%.
Okay, so we've given you a lot of strategies and a lot of ideas of what you should do. If you are interested, again, in having Pete and I come in and talk to you and your organization and look at that, give us a call at 614-306-7922. And what we do is come in and we'll do an evaluation for you and help you along the way. And that's all you have. I mean, we work with different clients in all different capacities.
Right.
In all different areas. That could be just one area.
Right.
So we've done this meeting. We've done the show all about meetings. If you want to listen to it in its entirety, we want you to go to takeactionbusinesscoaching.com. And then what do they do, Pete?
And click on the Business Talk icon, and you'll find our past radio shows.
And so in conclusion, if you could walk away and do 3 action steps right now, what would they be on this?
Number 1 is to list all the meetings that you have in your company. Who attends? What's the purpose? How long do they generally take? And then evaluate that and think about it. The other thing is strategically to think about each of those meetings that you're in. How could I prepare better or help others to prepare better to make it go faster? And how could I gently remind folks when they go off track that we're off track? And make sure it's not a personal thing. It's because we respect your time. We want to keep on track.
Great job. Thanks, Pete.
This has been Business Talk, your business, your success. Sponsored by Take Action Business Coaching. The opinions expressed were those of the participants and may not be the views of the staff, advertisers, and owners of the station. Advice given was not intended to replace that of your business advisor. For more information about the topics discussed today, call 614-306-7922. 614-306-7922. Tune in next week at this time for more Business Talk, your business, your success.